there's something about that that changed for us where we were able to have real conversations after that, because I'm a very passive person. But when that came out that night, after that, we were able to really face like, I don't like a lot of things about you and I want to talk to you about them, and they make me sad and they affect my life.
Welcome to the Shaping Freedom podcast, where we dive into conversations that inspire personal growth, transformation, and clarity in challenging times. I'm your host, Lisanne Basquiat. In today's episode, I have the incredible pleasure of sitting down with the inspiring Lacey Tazzino to explore the profound and often complex dynamics of mother-daughter relationships. During this conversation, Lacey shares her deeply personal story of being adopted by a single father and then reconnecting with her biological mother as an adult. She shares the ways that she navigated the emotional highs and lows that came with that very non-traditional upbringing. We also talked about and reflected on how our relationships with our mothers shape us, how they challenge us, and ultimately what they can, if we allow them to, teach us about ourselves. In this conversation, we also talked about her innovative app, Passport Journeys, which is an app designed to help mothers and daughters connect, heal, and grow together. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. It's full of vulnerability, empathy, and powerful insights that I know that you'll find meaningful. If you are a mother or daughter, or if you know of a mother or daughter that wants to have and develop a deeper, more meaningful relationship with their mother or daughter, I encourage you to listen in and share this with others. Here is my conversation with Lacey Tazzino. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I know your time is valuable, and I'm really looking forward to diving into this conversation with you, Lacey.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
So I did a little bit of perusing to get a little bit of, I typically try not to do a lot because I really want people to kind of share what resonates with them in that moment on that day. Right. So
yeah,
I did do a little bit of perusing, and I thought, my goodness, there are so many directions that this conversation can go in. There are so many things that we can talk about. We're just going to kind of let the space decide, right? And leave that to you to share whatever parts of your story you want to share. Why don't we start with this? Your journey, as I kind of alluded to, has been anything but linear. You seem to have a journey that has woven through all kinds of things, and I'm wondering if you would be willing to share the pivotal moments in your life that shaped you to be the person that you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that you said we're going to let the space decide sort of where we go. And I have noticed that you are a heart-to-heart host. And I've listened to your podcast and the direction that they go and the way that you allow them to authentically unfold. And I really appreciate that. And
Thank you.
am excited to share with you and talk with you about my life, pivotal moments in my life. From the beginning, I had a very non-traditional adoption story. And so I came into this world in a beautiful way, a way of sacrifice, a way of just real persistence on my dad's part, the one who adopted me. And I think the whole thing is beautiful. Looking back at the adoption now, looking at how amazing the agreement and setup was. So my dad adopted me on his own, gay, white, single man who really wanted a child. He always wanted a family. It just wasn't working out with his partners and different men that he was dating. It just never got serious enough for him to start a family. And so he and my mom were friends and they met. He owned a bar, she was a regular, and they met. And that was his pathway to becoming a father. That was his way. And my mom needed a pathway to have some space in her life without being a mother at that time. She already had my brother, and my mom was not living in a way where she could take care of me. And she wanted a way out. She wanted to have an abortion, and that's not what was in the cards for me. And so she met my father, and he stepped in and they created this agreement, and they ended up doing a formal adoption. But I was adopted, taken from the hospital with my father, and just he and I for 18 months before he got sick. But the most pivotal moment in my life was being having this non-traditional adoption to a man who had so much love to share and gave it all to me. And that's how I came into this world.
Wow. There's so much there. There's so much there that I personally can appreciate, being the daughter of a father who was a single parent. While I also had a relationship with my mother was an amazing woman who struggled with mental illness, and she was unable to take care of myself, my brother, and my sister. I think there's something to having the experience of a man who steps in as a primary caretaker to a daughter. I think there's something to that, something that kind of, for me, has filled me up.
100%.
Just that little piece of, like, we just got to the beginning of your life. How has that informed your outlook on the world? Just that, the fact that you came out of the experience of two human beings connecting and creating the energy to both give each other what they needed at that time.
Yeah. I think the best way I can describe it is I watch my now 6-year-old daughter and my husband, her dad. I watch their interactions closely. I am enamored by their relationship. And what I admire and love about their closeness and the tenderness that she brings out of him is something that I think, watching with this lens, knowing what an amazing father can do for your life. And I had him all the way until I was 6. So my daughter now being 6, one thing that really resonates with me and something that makes me emotional is, God forbid something happened to my husband today, the love and the experiences they have had in these 6 years. 'Cause I think before I thought, man, I only had them for 6 years. That wasn't a long time. But parenting alongside my husband for these 6 years and knowing the experiences they have had, I said, this is going to be with her for the rest of her life. If it stopped today, him being amazing makes her incredible. And so I just wanted to share that, because that lens that I have today and knowing what my father did for me and watching my daughter, I'm like, it is essential.
Absolutely. I remember things that happened, when I was 4 years old. I remember the interactions between myself and my parents that young. So, and those are the things that inform our journey. Kids remember, and what they don't remember in the scene, they remember through how they process that experience, that journey, what it felt like.
What it felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened then? You mentioned that you lost your dad when you were 6. And what happened? Did you have a relationship with your mother? How did all that pan out? What's kind of the phase 2 or chapter 2 of your story?
At that point, when I was 6, my mother was not in my life yet. So I was told that my mother was dead, that she passed away when I was born. And so when my dad died at 6, I pretty much thought I was an orphan. I thought I was living with his parents. So my father's parent, my grandparents took over as my legal guardians when he passed when I was 6. I had no knowledge of my mom, and lived with them, and they were grieving heavy. That was their firstborn son, and he had 2 sisters that lived right next door. We all lived sort of in this little triangle. And so from there, they all rallied around me and took care of me in the most beautiful way. I had 7 first cousins, 2 aunts, and we I had a beautiful childhood. Of course, I miss my dad. Of course, it was like, oh, I don't have parents. And there were moments where, of course, that was very sad, right? To think you have no parents, but to be surrounded by people that just loved me, loved on me so hard. It was beautiful. And then I found out when I was 18 that my mother was alive. And that's when I started a relationship with her. But my childhood, my mom and wasn't there.
Was that their agreement?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think, when he adopted me, it was that, she gave up her parental rights and she wasn't going to be a part of my life. But he did communicate the address where we would be, things like that. And my mom had a boyfriend for about 10 years who really pushed her to go find me and contact me. And she was so worried that she would come into my life and that it would just turn my young life upside down, and she just didn't feel fit, or there was a lot of things that my mom struggled with, that kept her from reaching out all of those years.
And so what happened once you got connected?
So I reached out to her. I got her information and I reached out and I made that contact with her. And it was Mother's Day.
Mm.
And I think I was 18, I was maybe 19 years old. It was sophomore year in college. And I lived maybe an hour and a half away from Houston. She was living in Houston, Texas. I contacted her and immediately she said, "Come to Houston today. This is Mother's Day." She said, "I have got to meet you. Come now." And I was like, okay, here I am for 18, 19 years thinking that I don't even have a mother. It's Mother's Day. And now I'm going to meet my mom. Oh my gosh, how terrifying it was. But I went and met her that day. And oh my gosh. Talk about pivotal moments. I know you asked that in the beginning. That day changed everything.
What did it change for you?
I mean, by definition, orphan as a child, but at that point, I was no longer an orphan.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a parent, a living parent. And I'm getting emotional because it's her birthday this week, but it changed how I felt about myself. It changed, what I thought I needed in this life. I didn't think, I didn't have a mom. So I was like, I'm fine. I don't need one. And when I met her, I was like, oh, yeah, I do need a mom.
Yeah. 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 I would imagine it also helped to answer some questions for you.
Oh, yeah.
About yourself, because there's something about seeing the person from whom you entered the world, or through whom you entered the world, and seeing yourself in that person.
Yeah.
I had a relationship with my mother during my upbringing. My mother, as I mentioned, struggled with mental illness, but we saw her every week. And I attribute my love for culture and art and to my mother, Matilda. But I didn't really get to know my mother until my late teens, starting in my late teens. And I grew up as this person, this young girl who lived within the construct that I had, which was my father And, my mother was mentally ill, and that was all kind of like a part of my story, was that I didn't have a mother. Even though I had her, I didn't feel like I had a mother. And there were some walls that went up because of that I now see as walls. But at the time, I was, I guess, just walking with the story that was laid out for me. So I didn't really feel any yearning for my mother at the time. I felt I had to have acted that out in some way or another, but I wasn't conscious of that. I was like, I live in a nice house, and I have, and I listen to jazz every day. We have dinner at the table every day. And yeah, there are things going on, but if I listed out my list of things that I needed, my mother would not at the time have been one of them.
Wow. Yeah.
Even though I experienced the things that young girls, my period and, puberty and boys and all of those things, even though I experienced those things in what felt like a more challenging way than I needed to, I didn't know.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. So what changed in your teenage years where you said you began to get to know her?
I had my son, Joseph, who's now 42. I had my son, Joseph, 3 weeks after my 18th birthday. And I don't think I've ever said that publicly, but I did. And I was working 2 jobs at the time, and I needed some help. And honestly, or transparently, it was anger that led me to deepen my relationship with my mother.
Yeah.
Because I and my sister and my brother, we were very close when we were younger. And there was a part of me that felt abandoned in some way, but I kind of blocked it out. And I asked my mother to help me to watch my son. But inside, my conversation was almost like, you owe this to me. Like, you didn't do.
You owe me.
Yeah. And that kind of started my, an amazing, amazing friendship and relationship with my mother until she passed away in 2008.
I love that you said friendship first.
That was the through line for her and I. It wasn't going to be stepping in as a air quotes mother. At that juncture, it just couldn't. And I remember there were ways that she attempted to. I remember she was at my house, and she, again, she took care of Joseph, my son, who was very young at the time. And I don't think it was when he was first born. I think he had to have been a toddler, because at that point he was out of the crib. And I remember, I guess she did some laundry or something. And I had some photos in a drawer of me, like in my underwear or something, that I had taken with a Polaroid. And I remember coming home from work and my mother standing there with these photos in her hand, like, what are you doing with these photos? And I took them out of her hand, and I'm like, what are you doing in my drawers? You don't get to do that. No.
Oh my gosh, at that age.
At that age, because
age.
Yeah, because I was like, no, I took these photos because that's what I wanted to do. Now let's talk about the fact that you haven't been my mother, whatever. Whatever I said at the time. But we had the opportunity through, some of those experiences, and to really talk and to decide where we were going to meet as 2 humans who shared blood and who had a very untraditional, non-traditional path. Do you know that we have a line of Shaping Freedom wellness products? Each are beautifully crafted and designed to support you in cherishing your mind, body, emotions, and soul. Carve out a sanctuary in your life with our Luxe sustainable yoga and meditation mats, essential oil candles, and more. Embrace self-care and reflection with every item, lovingly created to enhance your daily practice of spending time on you. Elevate your wellness journey with Shaping Sanctuary Collection because you deserve to feel balanced, nurtured, and inspired. Visit shapingsanctuary.com for more information. Tell me about yours.
I'm so proud of y'all. I'm so proud of you both because it is not easy to decide halfway through, midway through, in the middle of a relationship, in the middle of a journey, in the middle of your life, that you have the control to change how you're going to operate in this relationship. We're going to be this role and we're going to do it this way. And yeah, others are not doing it this way, but we can, and giving each other the permission, that is not easy. And that's not how it played out for me in the beginning. So we didn't do that. Once I met her, I thought, yeah, I haven't had a mom for 18, 19 years and I want one. And so let's do this. So I wasn't going into it as a friendship. I was going into like, I am in college. I am broke. I need help. And like you said earlier, you owe me, but I wanted it in this. I wanted it, Anna. You are my mother. You need to be a mom. And my mom was a partier. She was a party girl. When I met her, she was so much fun.
Good for her.
She was a corporate girl. She had it going on, I'm telling you. She was so smart, and she had this big time job when I met her, but she was fun. She entertained clients and she did all this. And when I came around, I was thinking, oh, it's time to cut all this off. You need to be a mom. You have not been a mom. And
you're like, no, got a new identity for you, like, miss.
No. And like, the beautiful thing is, well, before my mom passed away and we got a cancer diagnosis that gave us time to like talk through all this. And so I kind of realized what I was doing, because when we talked through it, we both laughed. She said, when you came around, I was not ready to give up what I was doing. And she was like, you were this mirror of accountability that just got placed in front of my face. And she was like, I was not having it. And we both just laughed because she said, I was trying to have a good time and you were looking for a mom. And I was like, and so we struggled with that for years.
What did she do with that? What did she do with that, the tension between her being kind of on the path of her life, whatever that looked like, partying, or maybe it was like whatever it was, and then you stepping forward with the needs that a young woman has from her mother? What did that look like?
It was back and forth. The funny thing was, sometimes I would feel her leaning into the role and she would try to swoop in and do mom things. And, I was in school at the time and had lots of girlfriends, and she would take us out and she's paying for everyone's meal and she's wanting to, make sure everyone's taken care of. And then other times I would be like, hey, I need to buy this book, or I just got a flat tire. And she's like, figure it out. And I would get really frustrated because I was like, wait, okay, she would pull me in and push me back, pull me in and push me back. And I didn't realize till later that her mom died when she was 4. And so my mom wasn't mothered. So my expectations of her, the way I wanted to be mothered, she was like, girl, I didn't get it either. She's like, I am trying my very best. And I think she was trying to heal. And it was just it was a yo-yo. But she did the best that she could. I believe that.
It's really interesting. I talk a lot about the power that we have and the opportunity that's available to us when we recognize that we are simply a channel through which all the experiences before us has the opportunity to flow to the next generation or to those folks with whom we interact. And what strikes me in what you just shared is I had some of those expectations too. You know, all the mothers I knew, they were like, you know, baby, I'm a cook for you.
Yes.
It's like, they were the mothers where you could just crawl up in their laps and they were there and they were, I had this image of a mother. And this just doesn't just happen with mother-daughter relationships. It happens with so many relationships where you have this image of what a mother, a father, a daughter, a son, a lover, a husband, whatever is supposed to be. And then we judge people on their ability, if we're not careful, to live up to this image that we have. And I think there's something really beautiful, albeit painful, that can happen sometimes when we just allow people to be who they are and allow them to show up as who they are. Because no matter how many times I told my mother, sometimes angrily, sometimes sadly, that I needed that mother. I needed that mother that I had the vision, right? I needed her to be a mother who never decided to let my father take care of us. I needed her to be a mother who found a way to support herself in the way that we had grown accustomed to during their marriage. I needed her to be a woman who would advocate for her kids. And then I realized through that pain and through that inquiry that what my mother did, and I'm sharing this because I wonder if it's similar, what my mother did was the ultimate sacrifice that a mother can make, that a parent can make. She allowed our father to take care of us because she knew that she could not. And she did what was best for us, is what she did.
She did.
And it took a long time for me. It took a while for me to really, really recognize that. And it also took me being a mother to truly understand that in a way that I could not and did not understand before. Because all I saw was the fact that she wasn't there and that I didn't have a mother every day.
And it doesn't feel fair.
And it didn't feel fair.
A lot of people will say, that's unfair. And there's a lot of things, like when I had my mother for the 10 years that I had her, that thought came up in my mind a lot. I didn't say it a lot to her, but I kept feeling, man, this is not fair. It wasn't fair that you did that, or she would make choices. And I'm like, that's not fair to me. And I just, like you, wanted more and wanted you to be. And speaking on those expectations, that we put on people in relationships, not just mother-daughter, it's also the relationship that we have with ourselves.
Always.
Right? It's, okay, I want to be the perfect mom. I want to be I have these unrealistic expectations on myself for every part of my life. I want to be the perfect wife, the perfect mom. My grandmother lives with us now. I want to be the perfect caregiver, perfect, entrepreneur, all these things. And on any given day, they're all going to crash down. Right?
Yeah.
And I think about that, and I think about the relationship that I've had to nurture for myself, and being fair to myself and being realistic and all of these things. And I think, man, the relationship that I'm nurturing with myself comes through, and the connection, the expectations, the fairness that I have, the space that I'm giving my daughter to be who she is because I'm just now giving myself that space.
That's right. That's the only way you can. We don't give other people space because we've not learned how to do that for ourselves.
That's it.
Everything is about the relationship we're in with ourselves. Everything is a mirror for the relationship that we're in with ourselves. It's so funny. That's not fair was my constant cry as a kid. So much so that I remember my father would kind of like jokingly, he'd say, Lisanne, that's not fair. He'd talk about all these stories. And me storming up the stairs, like, that's not fair. And I'd never heard anyone else share that. Yeah, I guess somewhere in there today, I still think the same thing, but I have a different solution for it. But there's so many things in life that aren't fair.
We want to scream that now. As adults, things happen and life is not fair. And this is not, we want to, right? That is a default baseline feeling for humans that is unjust. That doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel fair. And then when we can somehow calibrate that with empathy, and when we can just kind of level set with, that maybe that doesn't feel right, but there's a whole other human on the other side of this.
Yeah. Yes.
And their experiences, and I can go on and on about fairness, but yeah.
And I think we're taught, as children, we're kind of programmed to believe that it's very neat. You do 2 and 2 plus 2 equals 4, complete, move on. And that just is not what life is about. Tell me about your 10 years with your mom.
So I told you how it started, and I told you it was a roller coaster, but some of the most beautiful,
the pivotal moments in that relationship. Let's talk about that.
I told you she was fun. I told you she was smart, but my mom, like the way that I carry myself now, I feel like even in that 10 years, I learned so much from her. And like her friends, my friends that knew my mom would be like, oh my gosh, your mannerisms, things that you do are so much like your mom. Because she was just so appropriate with everything. She knew when we would go to restaurants, she was the one that knew all the things to order for everyone at the table. And she wore the, cutest outfits, and she was fashionable, and she was, all these things. The pivotal moments that stick out to me are the ones that stung, right? That hurt. And they typically, for us, would involve drinking. So my mom and I loved to drink. And it would be this thing, like we would go out, and the drinking helped us be honest with one another. It helped us have a good time. But then that would come, all of the emotion would just kind of bubble up. And we would have these just, knockout arguments that would set us back a month. We do all this work thinking we're getting closer and we're doing great. And we would just, oh my gosh, the one that I'm thinking about the most, I only said I hate you to my mom one time. I think I thought it. I'm sure I thought it, but it never came out of my mouth except one night in Miami. And we go out, and my mom just didn't have any boundaries. My mom had no, we talk boundaries a lot now. We weren't talking about that 10 years ago, but, we were talking all the boundaries. But by today's definition, my mom had no boundaries. And she just did what she wanted, and that's how she lived life.
Boundaries with her in terms of her own, the way that she entered the world.
The way that she entered the world, the way that she entered other people's space, yeah. So we're in Miami. I'm there for a work trip. She decides to tag along, and I'm like, okay, but you have got to behave. I am here for work. Can you imagine having to tell your mom that? Like, you have got to behave.
I love that.
Do not embarrass me. I was like, I'm in the rental car, and I'm giving her all of these disclaimers. I'm like, listen, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. And I could see it in her face. She was there for a good time. And
she was like, listen, no, you can say what you want, but
we are in for trouble. And we go out one night. I've got a big presentation the next day, and I'm like, Mom, we can't stay out long. And she's like, yeah, anyway. So we go out, and we're drinking, and it's South Beach, Miami, and it is fun, and the energy's high. And we run into 2 of my coworkers. And I'm like, oh no. And I see it in her eyes. I'm like, oh no. She thinks he's cute and he's young. My mom, like, young men. She didn't care how old you were. We go to the bar. Long story short, I turn around at one point during the night, and they are making out. He is my age. And I am pissed. I am like, it is time to go. Check, please. I get her in that taxi, and I am mad. I'm like, I told you, I needed you to act a certain way. I'm like, I work with this guy every single day. Now I've got to do all this. And she's, kind of just still, she's drunk and we're passing another street going back to the hotel. And she's like, oh, you want to have one more drink before we go back? And I was like, so I let her believe I'm going. She gets out of the car and she's like, come on, Lace, we're going to have one. And I told her right there, I said, I hate you. And
Oh,
that moment, oh my gosh. Even though it was like, in the
in the
height
heat
and
of it,
all that,
yeah.
heat of all of it, there's something about that changed for us where we were able to have real conversations after that because I'm a very passive person. But when that came out that night, after that, we were able to really face like, I don't like a lot of things about you and I want to talk to you about them and they make me sad and they affect my life. And so that was a pivot. That was a turning point for my mom and I that I think was good and bad.
How does she, well, I have a lot of questions. How did she respond?
I think she was embarrassed the next day, but she also I think she was so surprised because again, I am conflict avoidant. I will be very, very passive. So I think for her it was like, oh, she does have some like stand up for herself. And she was like, and then it made her a little proud. And she was like, okay, like you hate me. Let's talk about it. What do you hate? And we just dug in. And I was like, you know what? So I think her reaction to it didn't change her behavior that much,
Of course not. Why
if I'm
should it?
honest. It wasn't
I
like
know
that. It
you're
was
like,
like a,
I said it, and now here we go. I'm going to get the thing, that vision that I think I want.
no, 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 no,
Of
no.
course not.
But it did open, it opened us up for much more honest conversation that we
Yeah.
needed. Yeah.
And for you to be able to speak your truth,
Hmm.
outside of your
Yeah.
own mind, which is a powerful, powerful skill and lesson and tool for you to have.
Yeah.
You founded an app called Passport Journeys. Tell us about it.
So Passport Journeys is an online therapy platform for mothers and daughters specifically.
Mhm.
So I'm a tech girl. I was director of IT for a psychiatric hospital here in Houston. I am very fascinated about, the different ways technology helps us connect. Look at you and I right now across the country connecting in this way. So technology, the way it enhances our relationships, I was always very struck by. But after my mom passed away, I just went on this mission to help foster healthier mother daughter pairs. I knew that a healthy mother daughter relationship and one that was honest and one that was had boundaries and one that had support and all of that, what it could do for a woman's life. So I started this app and I gathered a group of therapists that are licensed here in Texas. So right now, one of the mother daughter pair have to live in Texas, and then the other one can live. We have one family, daughters in Houston, moms in Qatar in the Middle East. So it helps us with those barriers of the geographic barriers, but it's incredible work. There's a lot of mental health apps out there. There's a lot of therapy. I see my therapist online, but we are the first ones that say, you know what, the mother daughter relationship is that important that it's too important not to intervene in this professional way.
How does the app work?
So, moms and daughters that want a better relationship, they download our app. We've got a quick intake questionnaire. They both fill out the questions on their phone. And then I match them with one of our licensed therapists, and they get a notification you have a new therapist that's been assigned. And then they do an intake process where the therapist can really baseline mom, where are you at? What do you want from the relationship? Daughter, where are you at? Where are you struggling? That's the only time we do mom and daughter separate is in that first month. And then everything else, twice a month, we do video therapy. So the therapist comes on, they have talk therapy for 45 minutes. And then in between the sessions, my favorite part is they get assigned homework activities that are pushed to the app, pushed to mom and pushed to daughter. We do a prescribed bonding activity. So it's, hey, before I see you next, I want you guys to go take a walk in the park, or I want you to watch this movie together. I want you to do something. The most beautiful thing we're seeing is with a therapist assigning these activities, there's no pressure. Like mom isn't feeling like she's being rejected by daughter. It's no one's idea. Our therapist said we've got to go to lunch together. So it's an assignment and it takes the weight off of it. And what we are seeing and what I'm hearing from the relationships, if this is the only work that I ever do in my life and then it stopped, I did it. I did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can see that in you as well, while I had a very atypical journey with my mother, having my mother during the time that I did have her, she passed away in 2008, really set the stage for me, for my mothering to my children. I have a daughter, Jessica. I have a daughter and a son. And my daughter is an adult now, and I have a 7-year-old granddaughter and an 18-year-old grandson for my son. And while I didn't have what I envisioned as the ideal mother-daughter relationship as a child, because my mother wasn't in the home every day, what I learned was that we can create the relationship that we want to have with our children, with our daughters specifically as women and as mothers. We have the ability to do that. And that at the end of the day, it doesn't come down to the acts that happen during childhood. It comes down to what both people, women, are willing to invest into the health of the space between them and around them.
Yeah. For each other.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Absolutely.
Involved. Yeah.
And it comes down to the work that you're willing to do as a mother to understand what it is that you're bringing to the table and how that's being translated to your daughter in the relationship that you have with her. My daughter and I have done amazing work with each other and for each other. And she has never said she hated me to my face that I know of. I don't know. She may have whispered it under her breath. I never heard it. But I do know, I remember looking at one of her, and it really was by accident. I was not digging through her stuff, but her journal was kind of like flipped open or something. And she wrote in there how much she couldn't stand me and how horrible I was. And we joke about that sometimes. She was about 12. But sometimes it can be challenging to hear your child tell you that you're imperfect for them, to them, or to hear that they are struggling with something that you are doing or saying that in some way has translated into pain and discomfort for them. That's not an easy thing to hear as a mother, no matter what your experience was, or no matter how many bowls of cereal you made, when they were coming up. It's just not an easy thing to hear from your child. HeraHub Carlsbad is a co-working space and member community designed to empower entrepreneurs. More than just a workspace, HeraHub Carlsbad is a business accelerator and a connected network of successful entrepreneurs. Imagine a collaborative, serene, and spa-inspired environment where you can thrive. Our unique community allows each member to be both a guide and a student, fostering leadership and continuous growth for both you and your business. Experience an uplifting, supportive atmosphere that will elevate your entrepreneurial journey. For more information about HeraHub Carlsbad or to schedule a tour, visit herahub.com/Carlsbad. We also have locations in Temecula, Irvine, Washington, D.C., and HeraHub Carlsbad is one of 3 HeraHub locations in San Diego, the others being in Mission Valley and La Jolla. What is harder is rejecting that and not allowing that communication to flow. Because when you don't allow that communication to flow, you shatter the mirror that your daughter has, and you force her to create a wall to make up for the fact that that mirror hasn't been allowed to happen. So I commend your mother for showing up as herself. What was your mother's name?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. I commend Elizabeth for showing up as Elizabeth and giving you Elizabeth.
Now that I'm a mom, I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it. Like, I am doing this. Thank you for saying that. And what I know is that sometimes, like you said, it is hard for a mom to hear that, but it's also hard for moms and daughters to realize that your experience and the way that you articulate your experience might sound untrue to the other person because that is not how they saw it, right? So it is very common for moms and daughters to start our therapy and either one of them to reach out, usually the daughter, and say, Lacey, I can't do this. My mom is delusional. She's making things up. She's telling the therapist this happened. That's not how my childhood went, when she's telling it from her vantage point, right? She's telling it. Like you said, I was the one making the cereal. I wasn't sitting on that side of the table. So I'm telling you from this side. And sometimes it doesn't look the same. And that is frustrating.
That's right.
But being open to hearing it and being open to, apologizing for when it did hurt, when you didn't mean it. And, it's deep work though.
It is, but it's beautiful work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to tell you, it is beautiful work. My ex-husband and I divorced when my daughter was 14. And there was a lot. It was drama. There was a whole lot of things going on. It doesn't matter, but it was a lot. And my son was never, he didn't really talk a lot about what he was very much like, okay. But then he went and did whatever the hell he wanted to do. My daughter was the one who would tell it. She's always very vocal, still is. And I love that about her. And we had some really tough conversations during that time. And I myself was met with this moment that I know my parents have had many times, and they did not handle it. My mother did. My father was very much like, I am your father. I came to this country with a toothbrush in my pocket at 17 and, blah, blah, blah.
Uh-huh.
And, he would never, there was that wall, wouldn't allow it. And so I've always been very grateful that my mother did have the strength and courage to do that, even through some of the challenges that she herself was experiencing, because it helped me.
Yeah.
In those moments that we all have. I don't know how old your children are, but we all have those moments where that person that we have raised tells a story that to them is very different from how we intended it to be, from our vantage point. And what it taught me, what I have learned, is to be quiet and to listen. And to remember that it's not a criticism of me. It is her sharing her experience with me. And it doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just her truth. And that has to matter. And her experience,
You see it. You get it.
I get it.
How lucky. Oh my gosh.
I get it. And so I am so happy for the people, the mothers and daughters, that through using your app, Passport Journeys, are able to carve out some time and space, because that's what it takes. You have to prioritize it. If you want to have that great, healthy relationship, it has to be prioritized, and you have to be willing to do it with focus and with vulnerability and with a willingness to learn something more than you knew the day that you signed up for this journey. It is a journey. And I was not aware of passport journeys when I got to a point where I knew that my daughter and I that she would be better if we had the opportunity to do some work. We did,
Yeah.
yeah, we did some work right after she had, along the way, but more intense work right after she had my granddaughter, Emma, because I wanted her to clear the space of her childhood so that she could pour from a fuller cup into my granddaughter.
What a gift.
What a gift. What a gift for both of us, because I learned and heard things that I did not know, uh, things that I saw differently. And the gift is in the confidence that my daughter has as a woman today in her 30s who experiences the world from a full cup.
Yeah.
She has struggles of her own. We all do. And things can be challenging because that's life. Life be lifing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Life's all the time, but she is encountering life from a fuller cup. And I see the work that I've done, the work that my mother did, the work that I've done, the work that my daughter has done through in my granddaughter, Emma.
It changes everything. I can't believe you just said that because I look at my daughter and I literally think about the work that my mom did before she passed away, the work that we did. And I literally can say, I'm like, my daughter's life, her baseline, her emotional health is all better because we worked on ourselves. She never even met my mom, and her life is better because now the legacy of female relationships in our family has changed, and it's a priority, and it's a conversation to say, hey, we're going to work on this, and we want beautiful female relationships, and we want the women in our family to love each other and talk to each other, and to we care about that. That's a big deal to us. And
Yes. And it permeates beyond just that linear flow from grandmother to to daughter to granddaughter. It permeates to the men in our families.
it does. Lucky them that they
Yes.
lucky them.
Yes.
Lucky them that they get to benefit from health. I mean, yes, they deserve it.
Yes.
My husband deserves it, and he gets to reap the benefits of the healing that I've done. Even though my mom has passed, with all of these families that we work with, I'm still on a journey with my mom
That's right.
today. And I'm
That's
sure you
right.
are
And you will
too. You
be
are
every
still on
day.
it. And you're just
Every
like,
day.
yeah.
Every day. I am so happy that you chose to focus on this project, this incredibly, incredibly important project. 2 questions. What's up for you for 2025? And how can we support you?
2025, I want more mothers and daughters who want help, who cannot afford our app, to get support. I have so many mothers and daughters who say they get ready, they download the app, they say we want to work on it. We heard your last podcast, and we want that same for ourselves. And the end of 2024, I had lots of people coming, and but not everyone, there are financial barriers. So I started a nonprofit arm of the app. And that's because I want people to be able to sponsor and cover therapy for moms and daughters who want help but can't afford it. So any donations that I get, I go and I offer free sessions to moms and daughters who say, Lacey, I can't make it this month. Can we wait? And I say, okay, if you keep going, I can get you a sponsor for this month. So
What is the name of this nonprofit arm?
it's Mom and Me Journey.
Mom and Me
Me
Journey?
Journey. Yeah. Just for $280, you can cover 4 sessions for a mother daughter. That is huge. Every cent, every donation goes directly to covered therapy sessions. So when you ask my goal for 2025, is to expand access. I want more therapy. I want more sponsors, more donations to come in so that mothers and daughters, we take that financial barrier off. You want help? We can get you help. You really want to do the work? I've got sponsors for that. But I need sponsors. I need more money flowing into the nonprofit.
So the money comes in, and then what do you have, like a list of people who have asked, and that's how that happens?
We have a wait list. And right now we're small. So I have a wait list of people who have asked, and they said we need financial assistance. So I take the first one on the list and I say, okay, I can cover 3 months for you. And I can do that. As we grow, we have a formal application process and we'll do it more formal. Right now, the need is there and we are flowing. So as money comes in, I say, hey, you ready to start? Let's go.
Okay. Yeah. Mom and Me Journey, that, is there a website, or how do people, how can people who are going to support this very, very important initiative, how do people get to the place where they can enter their credit cards or their Apple Pay?
Yeah. If you go to motherdaughtersupport.com.
Motherdaughtersupport?
Yep. motherdaughtersupport.com.
Okay.
And there's a philanthropy tab, and there are different tiers. You can sign up to sponsor 1 month for a family. You can sponsor 6 months. It's really easy. You click on which level sponsor, put your credit card information, and that goes directly to sponsored therapy.
And all of it goes to that?
All of it.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you support people around it, people who are local to Houston, or all over the country,
Texas.
all over the world?
So as long as one of the mother-daughter pair reside in Texas, we will expand. We're looking to expand to 5 different states in 2025. That's another thing on the map. But right now, one must reside in Texas. The other can live anywhere. And then it's 14 and up, daughters ages 14 and up.
And what's it going to take for you to get to these other states?
I'm recruiting now, so I'm interviewing therapists. So in order for us to expand, we have to have licensed clinicians in the other states. So I have wait lists for California. I have families in Georgia that want to start. So I am interviewing therapists. So if you hear this and you're a licensed clinician and you want to be a part, you can go to passportjourneysapp.com. But what it's going to take is for us to have licensed clinicians that can cover the sessions because, legally, one of the pair has to be in a state where the therapist is licensed.
Understood. So Passport Journeys app is where a clinical therapist can go to connect with you and have the conversations or go through the process.
That's it. Learn about the program and also upload their resume. It's for clinicians and it's also for families to learn more about the program, passportjourneysapp.com.
Lacey, I am so happy to have met you.
You too.
I am so happy that we've had the chance to connect and to have this conversation. I have so many thoughts. And most of all, I'm feeling really full. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking a situation that you worked your way through and for being generous enough to choose to share that journey and that learning with other people. The relationship between mothers and daughters is so important, just as the relationship between fathers and sons is so important. There's, so much of the focus is on, I believe in a lot of ways is on the men and women, and the way that we come together, is to reach across toward each other, to build a bridge toward each other. And that starts with us building the bridge within ourselves.
Within.
And passing that along, We're going to support you. We're going to support these mothers and daughters. I'll talk to you about that offline. And I just thank you so much for showing up today. I feel so good.
I've been waiting to meet you. I've been so excited and just like, I can't wait. And it was everything I thought it would be.
Me too. Me too. Thank you. God bless you. You're amazing. Friends, thank you so much for joining me for this deeply personal and heartfelt episode. My conversation with Lacey Dizino offered so many takeaways about resilience, empathy, and the ways that we can heal through honest and open communication within our families. For me, here are just a few lessons that stood out. One is the importance of creating and allowing space in relationships to allow for healing and growth. So often we hop right in to that moment where allowing some space and air can really help us to foster better relationships with the people that we care about. Another lesson was the recognition that everyone brings their own perspective and story to relationships, even and in particular in the relationships between mothers and daughters. It's so important to understand those differences so that you can foster greater empathy and greater connection. And then finally, a reminder that it's never too late to reimagine and reshape your relationship with those you care about, especially with the people that are closest to you. We have the ability and the right to create the relationships that we want to have, even when we don't have a playbook to fall back on. What that does is it gives you an even more exciting opportunity to create it for yourself. Don't forget that. If Lacey's story resonated with you, please be sure to check out her app, Passport Journeys, as a way of helping you to strengthen the important relationships in your life. If it compels you to do so, I encourage you to also find ways to support this organization that dedicates and donates 100% of its donations to mothers and daughters who are in need of a healthier relationship. Thank you so much for listening. As always, please do review, rate, and share this episode if it resonates with you. And continue to find ways to shape freedom in your own experience. Until next time, this is Lisanne Basquiat.